Thor, Love and Thunder came out this weekend. Another MCU movie out in theaters,
The
and
29th MCU movie, baby.
crazy.
Rolling.
It's insane. Um, Man, did you ever think that the um, the fallout of Thor: The Dark World and the Patty Jenkins directing departure was going to have such an effect on a movie this far down the line? Because when I left this movie, I just was like, that was a lot. There's a lot to process in terms of the movie. I had a good time,
Mhm.
but it felt like so much, I think, because Portman didn't want to be a part of things for so long. And now she's like, okay, we can have this nice send off for Jane Foster. But
Yeah.
it just made the movie have to do so much legwork. I think that's also like a symptom of Taika's current mind state, and we'll talk about that. But man, I just was like kind of shocked at like how influential Thor: The Dark World is on this film in a sense.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, like, this is our fourth Thor film, the first MCU solo series to get a fourth film. Uh, and yet, it's really the second Thor film because it's the second under this very intentional, deliberate reboot of the character by Chris Hemsworth and Taika Waititi. So it's kind of interesting in that regard, where it feels like it's in the Ragnarok realm, but we're bringing back a clear relic of the old Thor that we didn't want to do anymore, which was Jane Foster.
Mhm.
And Natalie Portman, who I've loved forever as a kid, obviously, fan of the prequels here. Natalie Portman is a bit more up and down with Taika's vibe and Taika's style, in terms of what he asks of his performers. So there's things to talk about there. But yeah, I mean, and think about it, like I wasn't even expecting Christian Bale to come back to a franchise movie at this state of his
Yeah.
career. It's the first time he's done this in like 10 years, you know? But it was a really committed villain performance as Gore
Yeah.
the God Butcher. Bale definitely delivered on what he was asked to do, that's for sure.
Um, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Bale in a second, but you think about where Thor is at this point, right? And he's kind of become this like bumbling buffoon of a superhero. Oh, and I think that makes sense. Hemsworth famously, I think I can't remember if it was after the Dark World or after Ultron was like, I'm
Right,
drowning this character. Gotta do something different. Taika,
right,
I think, is a great fit for where Hemsworth wanted to go. Wanted to lean more
right.
into the comedic aspects.
Both
I think
from
that's all great.
that side of the world too. So Hemsworth was a natural advocate as an Australian and Taika as a New Zealander. So it all made sense.
So I think that like the character has moved in the right direction. I think the thing is like Ragnarok felt very specific as this
Mm,
movie that was an exploration of grief and family and coming together, but also it's just like we're gonna explore all these things, but around like a party vibe. We're gonna just make this fun. We're gonna let the crowd have all these crowd pleasing moments. Everybody's gonna be cheering. Hulk versus Thor in the
yep.
gladiator ring.
Planet Hulk.
Great stuff, amazing stuff. This just felt like it was really trying to cover a bunch of different genres of movie. I mean,
Right.
uh if you could show me a scene from like five different parts of the movie and you would not be able to really pinpoint what the movie is going for, and I think that's probably the biggest criticism. But with that all said, I think there's moments in this that are like so far and beyond what other Marvel properties in general, but like Marvel movies have been able to do. And I think that's the thing that's kind of been like a through line is like in the Doctor Strange movie, right? We have the music note fight scene, or
Right.
like when they're going across all the worlds and like going through all the universes or whatever it is, dimensions, and they're kind of changing as they go.
Yeah. The
Like
pink
that's like,
dimensions.
yeah, that's the cool stuff. In this one, you get that amazing scene where they go find Gore on that moon. They have
Oh
that
yeah.
amazing battle, and we'll talk
Black and
about
white.
that more. But it's like you get these glimpses in these movies now of like this like one really amazing idea, and you're like, just commit to like this, like just be this.
Yeah.
But they're still so strapped to being these Marvel properties that need to feel so familiar to people. It's like I just want them to like take a risk and kind of spice it up a little bit more.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, because when they brought in Taika back in 27, or when the movie came out in 2017, it felt like a risk because it was like the
Right.
first time in a while that you were getting the director's identity in an MCU movie. Of course, Black Panther with Coogler coming out around that same time. But now you're getting Thor Love and Thunder, and it's an unconnected movie. It does not have any like MCU obligations per se. I mean, we do see the Guardians of the Galaxy in the beginning because that's just where Thor was left with. But for the most part, we pack them up, get them out of there, and we get on our merry way
Hmm.
as a Thor movie, which it's totally fine. But at the end of the day, Taika Waititi juggles tone. That's his thing. So when you also have a lot of different plot threads and things you're interested in your movie, on top of juggling tone throughout, yeah, I mean things are going to be up and down in terms of their effectiveness. I think that's just kind of par for the course with what he's trying to do with Thor at
Hmm.
this time. I think that's to be expected. I saw a lot of, I think, hand wringing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase Four's relative aimlessness in a post Thanos world, and like kind of putting that on Thor. Whereas I feel like Thor: Love and Thunder is like totally doing its own thing, and that's supposed to be what we always wanted, right?
Hmm.
Like that's what that was so good about Moon Knight, right? I didn't even like Moon Knight, but like at least Moon Knight was just doing its thing and being itself, you know. Thor: Love and Thunder was just doing that, right? And like I just didn't understand like those criticisms a lot of people seem to have, or like now Marvel fatigue has set in, and I'm gonna take it all out on Thor and Taika Waititi. It's like I feel like we need to step that back just a little bit and perhaps analyze the way you put it, where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of different threads going on here, and if maybe we strip this down a little bit or notch it down in the humor so that dramatic stakes would land in a more mature way, or at least in a way that makes them feel like they matter more, perhaps then the movie is more effective. But for what it is, which is this big bumbling mess by design, I still had a pretty good time with it. So
Oh yeah.
I would much rather take this than something that's so much more bland, but like committed to one tone.
Oh, completely agree. And I mean, there are just moments in this movie that freaking rock. First of all, you've heard it in all of the promos and all of the trailers, but the use of Guns and Roses and just
Yeah,
like 80s rock is just like fantastic in this. And like I
right.
really love like the playfulness you talked about, how there's like certain ass things Taika asks of his actors, and he really, I think, in the end, just wants everybody to be playful and to like commit to whatever their bit is, and you get people fucking committing in this, bro. Um, let's talk just real quick about our guy Russell Crowe, who
Oh
shows
yeah,
up as Zeus. Talk about committing. He's not. He's going for this bad Greek accent, which is just like I don't even know. I like don't know who taught him how to do that accent, but it was terrible. But
yeah.
he is such a bumbling buffoon by design in this, and I just loved every second of it. He was hamming it up, being ridiculous, and
Yep.
I was like, "This is great, good for Russell Crowe." And everything on that God world by design is supposed to be ridiculous and stupid. You're uninvited
Mhm.
to the orgy, hilarious, but like. I just was like, this is fun. I like that
Yeah.
Taika got to do this.
Totally, totally. In that moment too, I think it's when they're going to I forget the name of the place where all the gods chill,
Mhm.
and they're kind of I forget who says it. Maybe Korg says it or something when they're like, "Who we're gonna see," and they name drop Quetzalcoatl. And I watched this movie in Mexico, so all the Mexican people around me were laughing super hard at the name drop of Quetzalcoatl for obvious reasons. That was just a fun thing to be a part of.
That's great. Yeah, I loved all that stuff. I thought the goats were great. I found them so funny, and then having them actually be like the ones that pull the boat, I thought was just like
Yeah,
fantastic. Really loved that, and I think the temperature on oh man, what's the rock dude's name? Why am I
Korg.
blanking? Korg, yes. I think the temperature on Korg is like varying for a lot of people, but and certainly he's actually do a lot of like exposition and like dumping of like past storylines that play into this, which is just kind of
Hmm.
it's a Marvel problem at this point. We're too far down the line. Like everything is too interconnected to like not have something like that to explain where a lot of these stories pick up. But I think Korg gets a chance to do some really fun stuff and drop his one-liners, and I enjoy Korg. So
Taika's voice work as Korg is always funny, so that
yeah,
when he expounds upon like stuff, it's just nice to be around. Like remember the end of Ragnarok where they're they're
yeah,
they're on the ship and he's like, "Oh, you can rebuild. Foundation's still there." And then there's like another explosion. He's like, "Never mind. Foundation's all gone." It's just he's just fun. He's just fun.
yeah,
He's light. He's a light presence. Um, Speaking of the music, at the end, they just drop Ronnie James Dio's "Rainbow in the Dark." I was like, "Oh
I
my god,
know.
another banger!" You had to save it for the credits. I wish that was in the movie. Uh, yeah, I mean, in a sense, they run a lot of stuff back, right? Like in the beginning, at New Asgard, we see Matt Damon, Sam Neill, and Luke Hemsworth again as the actors, and I actually love that they brought them back because I laughed just as much the second time,
Yep.
especially at that second scene, which was apparently nearly cut, where I believe Tessa Thompson advocated to keep it in, where Matt Damon basically is like, "Well, they didn't say no," and they
Yeah,
just start riffing into their next routine of what had just happened to them when
that was
Gore had
great.
attacked the town. Super funny. In the beginning, like I think some of the jokes with I think it was Cord who was making Jane Fonda and Jodie Foster jokes about
Yeah,
Jane Foster. Super smart,
fantastic.
super witty, very Taika. Um, yeah, I mean, anything else that like stands out to you as like Taika quirks? Because like there's a lot of threads that we're talking about here. The Love and Thunder becomes actually very paramount from the title
Hmm.
into like our themes here, but there's also for a nice stretch of the movie we're in like kind of like a sick person's like cancer movie.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know if I can think of any like quirks that come to mind right now. I think just stylistically, some of the stuff like we talked about the fight on the moon, like that feels like a very singular Taika type vision in terms of how and you can listen to some podcasts about how they shot that scene, but they used this like special lighting system that was like shooting light from all these different directions
Mm.
on the people and like swinging the camera upside down and stuff. Really, really cool. Um, yeah, and I think honestly, just the technicolor vibe of the whole thing, it feels so much brighter than a lot of the other Marvel movies do, and so I think that would probably be the other like flourish. Um, I want to talk about like the two other performances that really stand out to me in this, and that's Portman, which I think Portman coming back and being like, we're gonna give Jane this like send off. I guess we needed it, but like I don't ever mind having more Natalie Portman in my life, and I thought she was pretty
Mm.
good. Um, especially because she is kind of playing this dual role where she's superhero and dying sick person. Um,
Yeah.
I think she plays both roles really well, and it was just fun to get to see her be a badass. And I thought all the stuff between her and Thor when they first like get back together and she's all powerful with Mjolnir and
Yeah.
and the axe. I think that's all really like well done. I enjoyed all that.
Totally.
What do you think of her performance?
Yeah, I think sometimes she struggled a bit with like Taika's humor, just not really her strength as a performer.
The
But
catchphrase, yeah.
yeah, right, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was just nice to be with her again. And I think the fact that they made her sick and they had her die at the end actually added a lot more like narrative repulsion than I expected beyond them. Oh, we'll just bring back Thor and do the Mighty Thor storyline because we don't know what else to do. So I was a bit impressed with what she was able to do as a result. Now we didn't get as much Valkyrie as I would have liked. I think Tessa Thompson is awesome in this role. She definitely
Yeah.
gets Taika's vibe for sure, but she only gets to do so much. She's basically absent for the second half of the film. But we do get it. It's fun. I think she's great.
I love when they're in the god's place, whatever it is, and she like goes up to Zeus's like I don't know goddesses around him and like kisses one of them on the hand. It's very like Robin Hood esque or like James Bond esque, and I thought that was just a classic Tessa Thompson type moment. Um, I also really liked how they kind of just already had them be friends. We didn't have to see
Yeah,
Valkyrie and Jane like form this friendship. It's like, oh yeah, they just are like cool chicks who get along with each other. And like we didn't need to over explain this. I thought that was a nice choice. Apparently there's like a 4.5 hour cut of this movie, which
yes.
that's a lot, but
The Grand Master Jeff Goldblum was apparently back. Peter Dinklage's character from Infinity War was apparently back. I think the implication was Gore was going to kill them as well. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah,
Drop
I
the
think
YTD cut.
yeah, actually, Taika had some funny comments about how director's cut sucks, and there's no way you'll ever see my director's cut. Was the point? I like that. That was funny.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, we should talk about gore though. I mean,
Yeah.
um, awesome way to start the film where they just immediately introduce you to our villain, clear motivations, clear origin story, get in, get out. You know who this guy is. Is he still kind of unexplained with his powers? Just kind of this necro sword stuff. Yeah, I didn't quite know exactly how strong he was, but I got what his vibe was. I got his thing, and honestly, I really didn't see coming with how it ends with his daughter uh, staying alive, and then Thor taking her under his wing, moving forward, played by Hemsworth's real life daughter as well. Didn't see that coming at all, but I think you get what you paid for. I think, which is Christian Bale is one of, if not the greatest actors to play an MCU villain, superhero villain in general.
Yeah.
And you got a really committed performance from an actor who is famously very committed. And don't feel like there was any notes to give about Gore. Gore was really effective, and I think, like you said, the shining example is the stuff on the moon, where you have this really awesome visual scene, which actually has some practical lighting brought in to make it stand out beyond the CGI. And yeah, I think just Gore's felt like a real, I think, great presence on on in this film, which is nice because with a movie this stuff with themes and ideas and tones, I think you really needed your conflict driver to be successful in this movie and
Hmm.
not be kind of a lame, undercooked Marvel villain, which is we've seen plenty of those over the years. So yeah, I think overall the gore stuff lived up to the hype.
I think Bale is fantastic. I think you actually brought up a great question, which is like, who are the best actors of all time to play a villain in one of these movies? And I mean, it's obviously Brando as Lex Luthor, like Heath Ledger as the
Right.
Joker, and then I guess Bale might be up there. I'm trying to think if
Yeah.
there's another.
I was thinking with the MCU, the best others are probably Kate Blanchett as Hela and
Yeah,
Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane. I guess I
yeah,
think those are probably the best ones. And
probably.
yeah, I mean, obviously everyone loves Josh Brolin, but I'd probably put him a peg below those as a
Yeah,
performer.
Michael
So
B
yeah.
up
Oh,
there,
and
but
Gene Hackman as Luthor.
oh, that's right. I forgot that
Yeah,
he played him as well.
yeah,
But circling back, yeah, I think Gore, just in general, the makeup on him is done so well. Just kind of being this like intimidating figure on the edge of a battlefield who's able to like come up through shadows, just like very cool. I don't really understand why he gives up that strategy though. Like, it seemed pretty unbeatable. Like, he could just pop up wherever he wanted to. Should have probably kept doing that. Also, classic villain stuff where like you could just kill the person, but you have to like talk and like make it dramatic, and then they get out. But regardless, I think Bale really shines, like you said, like on the moon, but also that scene where he's like talking to the kids and he like pulls out the
yes,
snake. And like that, you mentioned like the YTD like flourish. That's a very like Taika type scene, right? Where like he takes this guy who thinks he's like cool. It's almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm type thing where he thinks he's like cool or like can fit in, but like it's just being like so like out of place or like awkward. And like I thought Bale was like really incredible in those scenes, and that opening scene as well was great. I loved everything about Gore. I wish we were going to get more, but not surprised Christian Bale wanted to get in and out of the MCU.
yeah,
Um, yeah, but I overall, man, I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really fun. Um, I definitely feel like it maybe could have been a little bit longer, but I have no qualms with an under 2 hour MCU movie at this point. Like, sure,
mhm,
I'll take some shortcuts if that means I get in and out of the theater in 2 hours.
yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I found some of the pushback on this movie just to be a bit odd because I feel like people are putting all these like MCU sins on this movie's shoulders when I feel like that's the last thing you should be doing to the Taika Waititi self-contained fourth
Mm.
Thor movie. It just feels a little out of touch, and like our frustrations with the unevenness of the MCU on Disney Plus. Let's keep that away from this movie. That's how I feel about it anyway. We'll talk about Miss Marvel next week. Um, yeah, I mean, we might as well end with the post credits where we get introduced to. We learn that Zeus is not actually dead, which I thought was fun. It was nice,
Hmm.
and we're setting up the future of Thor, where Thor's going to be chased down by the gods. We're going to see Zeus's son Hercules, played by Ted Lasso Emmy winner Brett Goldstein, and keeps the trend of recent MCU stingers where we basically just learn about casting for the next movie in the series. Of course, Doctor Strange introduced us to Charlize Theron's Clea, and Eternals introduced us to Harry Styles' Eros. So, and Black Widow actually was supposed to introduce us to Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Valentina, but due to release schedules, Falcon actually came out first and jumped that up. But basically, it's a new strategy, right? Where like the stingers are introducing us to casting for the next movie in the series, and the connectiveness of like the MCU itself is not there anymore. Remember when we got introduced to like Thanos saying, "I'll do it myself," grabbing the gauntlet, or we saw uh, Wanda and Pietro for the first time directly leading into Ultron. You know, like the
Mhm.
Stingers have kind of moved into a new stage and a new purpose, which is definitely a choice on Marvel's part.
Yeah. So I'm like hot and cold on this, right? First of all, I don't know if I get Brett Goldstein being cast as Hercules. Just doesn't feel right to me for some reason.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But beyond that, I, where Thor: Love and Thunder leaves off, I almost feel would be like a good conclusion to the character. I don't think it will be, but Taika said that he would come back if it was going to be something like completely different. I don't know what they're going to get, and to be honest, where it leaves off with Thor being this father figure to this child is maybe the most familiar storyline that Disney properties have going right now. Where
Mm.
I mean, even Doctor Strange, this character who
Right.
very reluctantly does not want to interact with young people most of the time, is now put in this father or at least like mentor like role with multiple young people in the MCU. So it's like they're going for this very clear strategy of like kids will like this character and adults will relate to this character, and we can just mesh them together and have these storylines bring everybody out. I just don't know. Like it just doesn't feel fresh. I am interested, I guess, to see what Love could do, or that was what they named the kid, right? Love,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
What Love could do, but I don't know. I don't know how excited I am to see another Thor movie quickly. You know?
Right. Well, I definitely don't think it'll be quick. We'll probably learn more about the future of the MCU either at San Diego Comic Con or D23 this year. Kevin Feige has all but said as much. So we're probably not going to see a Thor mainline film in a while. Who knows if we see him pop up in somebody else's movie for a while, because we've seen a lot of Chris Hemsworth in addition to the Thor movies, of course. But, I think, yeah, it is kind of odd that, like, Hemsworth, I guess it makes sense why Hemsworth isn't running away from this character. Like, it seems like a
Hmm.
nice way for him to just do something he enjoys. And obviously, the check is nice too. He's not trying to get out the way Downey and Chris Evans did.
Right.
So, where that leaves you, though, is he is our longest tenured character who we're kind of playing out the string, I guess, with his comic origins. And now we're going to see his relationship with Hercules, which is very storied in the comics. So, yeah, I guess that'll be fun, you know. Um,
It's
whether Taika's one at the helm, though, I think is an open question because
yeah.
Taika, he has his movie Next Goal Wins coming out soon, which he's already made, but it seems like he's still as committed to making Star Wars on the big screen and is, in all likelihood, the first person to make a Star Wars movie in the future. So he, and I don't think we're getting Thor 5 anytime soon. And I don't think Marvel's going to rush to pick someone to replace
No.
Taika. And Hemsworth probably wants to keep working with him too. So it'll probably be a while. I mean, heck, it's been almost 5 years since Ragnarok too. So I'm sure it'll be several years.
Which is like crazy, right? Because we're talking about the next time we're going to be talking about a Thor movie, and like, how excited are you for Brett Goldstein as Hercules? And it's like, well, I'm not going to see him for half a decade.
Right.
So
That's why
how
it's not.
excited can we get? You know?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like it's the other side of like these kind of stingers where it's like, are these actually that effective because they're not prompting you for what's next?
Right.
And all of these Marvel Phase 4 movies, with the exception of Black Widow, have largely felt like their own thing. In the case of Shang-Chi, I was very happy about that. I love that film. But like, maybe it's up to the MCU and we'll find out soon and we're going to see more of Kang and Secret Wars and blah blah blah. But I think for right now, it just kind of feels like an odd strategy because we're like just getting ahead of like casting news and Hollywood Reporter, and that's all this is really achieving.
Yeah.
Because like the real ones who read entertainment news will find out about the casting regardless. Is that
Mhm.
really all you want to serve with something, or is it more about the fact that these stingers actually don't have that much purpose anymore, and that's the best thing they can do with them? Is just to give you a taste? I don't know.
It's funny. Probably one of my favorite stingers ever was at the end of, and a lot of people share this. I think at the end of Avengers when they're
Yeah,
just eating.
shawarma.
Yeah, it's just like they don't have to. They don't have to make these a thing anymore if they don't want to. They can this is a part of their plan that they can definitely about face on, and I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I don't know. It's interesting to think about where Marvel's headed because this is, like you said, 29th movie. We don't really know exactly like what this like overarching stage 4 is leading up to. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we know Kang is in Ant-Man 3. I feel like that has the best potential to get the ball rolling. I'm not expecting much in that realm from Black Panther 2. You
Mhm.
know, we have the Marvels, Captain Marvel 2 coming soon, Fantastic Four and Blade in the more immediate future. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what that next slate looks like and like
Yeah.
see like what we're about. Captain America 4, another one where like as much as we know about the Thunderbolts movie that got recently talked about online, like we just don't know what that overarching plan is, and I don't necessarily need an overarching plan, but I think I would rather like confirmation that we don't have one, you
Yeah.
know, because then
Yeah.
because like
A
I
great
think
way
for
to put it.
Shang Chi makes more sense. Origin, Thor,
Mhm.
the fourth Thor movie being completely self contained, definitely unexpected. But in this case, I don't mind it. But I'm just kind of curious about like what is the rhythm of MCU storytelling going to be because and how much is Disney Plus affecting this?
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Well, we'll be talking about them all when they come out.